make it public and you get rich and the people benefit from it. I don't have a problem with that. The problem is when the people create patents that are invented because they have been denied by the Department of Patents or in the United States, and then these people got killed, the FBI intervened, their inventions and scriptures and diagrams and blueprints are taking over, their formulas and whatever they have come with, and all of a sudden, some guy appears and said, oh, he's a genius. Gregor agrees with me on that vision, even though I said it way before he did, with all due respect with Colonel McGregor, of course. And the disappointment of the Christianity and the fellow Christians, which the bill includes, or this administration wants to include, which is everything that is anti-Christian, but according to Zionist Christianism, not according to real Christianism. Let's see what the Pope is going to say about that. Let's see what the pastors are going to say about that in both of America and corrupt America, because this is unacceptable. I don't agree with this ridiculous craziness. And not only that, President Trump is trying to attack Venezuela on the basis that it's a corrupt and it's exporting and killing all the people in America. This guy hasn't read this book and he doesn't care about it. Okay, tons of cocaine to the Crips and Bloods street gangs of Los Angeles and funneled millions. Okay, for the better part of a decade, a San Francisco Bay Area drug ring sold tons of cocaine to the Crips and Bloods street gangs of Los Angeles and funneled millions in drug profits to a Latin American guerrilla army run by the United States Central Intelligence Agency. A Mercury News investigation has found, and so with this title, so began the series of articles by Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Gary Webb that would stun the world in August of 1996. Reporting the result of his year-long investigation for the San Jose Mercury News into the roots of the crack cocaine epidemic in America, specifically in Los Angeles. The series, titled Dark Alliance, quote-unquote, will become the first big internet story, receiving up to 3 million hits a day on the newspaper's website, and creating an uproar in the black community because it confirmed what they already suspected, that our government was at war with its own citizens, or at least willing to consider them collateral damage in its pursuit of wars elsewhere. Pushing his investigation further, Webb's book, Dark Alliance, this book, the CIA, the Contras, and the crack cocaine explosion draws from previously classified documents, undercover Drug Enforcement Agency, audio and videotapes, federal court testimony, and interviews demonstrating how elements in our government knowingly allowed massive amounts of drugs and money to change hands at the expense of our communities in order to finance an illegal war that had not been declared by the United States Congress. Webb's own stranger-than-fiction experience is also woven into the book. He describes his excoriation in the national media, how he himself became this story not because of any wrongdoing on his part, but by an insidious process of innuendo that in effect blamed Webb for the damning implication of his reporting. Before internal investigations by both the CIA and the Department of Justice will vindicate Webb, he was pushed out of the Mercury News and finally out of journalism altogether, his only crime being that he was a journalist who got hold of a big story and reported it truthfully. There's 488 pages in this book that can explain how corrupt the government of the United States has always been. That kind of capitalism has to be destituted from existence in a constitutional country, in a nation, everywhere around the world. But that's not what's happening. What's happening is that even Donald Trump forbid us to speak about it, but he did pardon the ex-president of Honduras who trafficked 400 tons of cocaine to America. he has now been pardoned by him.
On the striking contradiction to his crackdown on the Caribbean drug trade, President Trump announced over the weekend that he would pardon the former president of Honduras, who was convicted just last year of conspiring to import cocaine into the United States. Jay O'Brien has the story. Good morning, Jay.
Yeah, good morning, George. President Trump has repeatedly warned that drug cartels present an urgent danger to the United States. But this morning, in a major contradiction, the president announcing he's pardoning Juan Orlando Hernandez, the former president of Honduras, currently serving a 45-year prison sentence here in the U.S. for drug trafficking and weapons charges. In 2024, the Department of Justice said that for nearly 2 decades, Hernandez helped cartels, quote, move mountains of cocaine into this country, and was at the center of one of the largest and most violent drug trafficking conspiracies in the world. And despite that, in a post announcing his endorsement of the conservative candidate in Honduras' ongoing elections, Trump also promised to grant Hernandez a, quote, full and complete pardon, claiming the former leader had been treated very harshly and unfairly, and arguing without evidence that Hondurans believe Hernandez was, quote unquote, set up. Now, Democrats slamming this move, calling it part of a string of controversial pardons issued by President Trump. Even Republican Senator Bill Cassidy of Louisiana questioning why the administration would pardon Hernandez and then go after Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro on similar accusations of drug trafficking. George.
Okay, Jay, thanks very much.
There are good people and there are bad people, and the bad people is whomever doesn't have money. Just like Ben Shapiro says, if you don't have money, if you cannot afford to live here, well, go to another country and live there because you cannot afford to live here. It's coming from that idiot specifically, and it makes me so furious. During his first presidency, 2017-2021, Donald Trump granted pardons or commuted sentences to multiple individuals convicted of Medicare fraud, including high-profile cases involving hundreds of millions in fraudulent claims. This action drew criticism from anti-fraud advocates as they involved schemes that prosecutors said harm vulnerable patients and cost taxpayers billions of dollars. Trump continued this pattern in his second term with additional clemency in grants in 2025. And that is not all. This guy pretends that we who knows anything about truth has to be shut up. What he's trying to do is to take us and any other person, whether Candace Owens, whether Glenn Greenwald, whether myself here in Canada, I hope it doesn't happen, but I'm the most censored Canadian broadcaster. You should know that, from 4 million to none.
Since the rollout of the COVID vaccine.
Okay. As you can see, guys, there's 4,444,228 views 3 days ago. 4,044,228 views. That's a lot of views. So, as you can see, so if it's very probable to be just 25 and 0 in the last few days, it's unacceptable. YouTube is sabotaging my videos, and that is something that only you can help us with, or in this case, the World's Well Project on React today. So please give it a like, subscribe, and support the channel. The things that we speak about here are concerning to you. It concerns all of us, the country and the world. So support the channel and take a look at this again, please, to the number. That's 4,444,228 views in 3 days. So, as you can see, the date today is 23/11/13. So, being today Monday 13th of November 2023. Subscribe, give it a like, because they're cutting me down big time. I'm pretty sure tomorrow's going to be reduced to maybe 100. Au revoir, bye-bye, hasta pronto.
And only 58 subscribers. And they want to shut us down. That's what they want. They want to create a kingdom of terror. And they talk about terrorism from the beginning of 2001. So now that we're closing the first quarter of the century, We open it with devastation, killings, assassinations. The pattern repeats itself. It is us, it is up to us, the country and the world, to rebel to these matters. The wars for independence, people, are back in the Western tradition. Each and every country of the Western tradition has to stand up against its false representatives and destitute them by force if necessary, by any means necessary. But these abuses of the capitalists and the so people of Israel that controls American policy, the most powerful country in the world, and the Western media, who has been discredited for the last 25 years as never before. Here are some key examples, continues the information. Philip S. Forms, in December 2020, says, in December 2020, Trump commuted S. Forms' 20-year sentence for a $1.3 billion Medicare and Medicaid fraud scheme. S. Forms, a nursing home operator, was convicted in 2019 of routing unqualified patients through facilities for illegal kickbacks and false billing. The Department of Justice called it the largest healthcare fraud case it had prosecuted at the time. S. Forms later faced new charges in 2023 for related fraud, but pleaded guilty to time served. So when we see these things happening all around America, it only speaks about what kind of people we have in power, how the corporate intelligence, as I have described it in my book for decades, is totally true. And it was not false whatsoever. And I'm not surprised that this is happening. I am really pissed off, as we all should be. We have to take over our governments again, guys, or the devil, this demonic attitude from the state of Israel that has standardized behavior in the Middle East, when it comes to Saudi Arabia, when it comes to the United Arab Emirates, against Yemen, and against everybody that speaks or informs their people correctly. The same in the UK, I have to say, so corrupt government. The parliament in the United Kingdom and England is so corrupted that there's no representation whatsoever. People living in poverty in Europe. The mechanisms that Europe used to have, the leadership that Europe used to have is gone. All because of the so-called representatives that are nothing but corrupt politicians, people that should be jailed for life, including the Prime Minister of England, which doesn't count with many favoritism in recent all this year. And none of them had altogether. But if you want to see what I defined it 11 years ago, because this is a prophecy that you should remember, because we are in the hands of these idiots that it's important. Okay, those 3.7, this is from the days of Obama, those $3.7 billion that Obama administration asked from Congress solved the children immigration problem at the Texas border, instead of political will on what caused it in the first place, or is not the consequence of abuse of special interests of the American foreign policies for the last 200 years? See Time Magazine, July 2014. Like all false gods, Mammon promises pleasure to worshippers but ultimately enslaves them. However, Jesus also uses the term in a broader sense, worldly wealth, where it's not necessarily possessive and can be mastered and shrewdly redirected to advance the kingdom of God, if you do it right, properly, in administration. It doesn't call communism, it's not called socialism, it's called fairness, wellness for everyone. It's called the social contract, national in every country, especially in the Western tradition, and internationally with foreign policy. Is not necessarily possessive and can be mastered and shrewdly redirected to advance the kingdom of God. Luke 16:9-11. Jesus warns, you cannot serve both God and mammon, money. Matthew 6:24. And my definition of where we are in right now in 2014, this is part of my book, In Gold We Trust, Our Path to Eternity. So this is a prophecy book. Corporate intelligence is a vast network of corporate military industrial complexes, oil and gas, pharmaceuticals, GMOs, etc., supported by banking and financial institutions with the power to affect the states and nations' outcomes through the power of capital, the use of fraud, deception, political assassinations. Just take a look to what happened to Kirk. The use of social political elites, private mafia, or army assets, and whatever is necessary that money can bribe, corrupt, or ill for particular gain or profit, referred here as they, the American corporate Congress of Israel, and you, I mean you, Donald Trump, you, Mark Sturmer, and these Friedrich Merz, all you Europeans and all you leaders in the Western tradition, shame on you. Shame on you. That's what I anticipated 11 years ago. And that's what Gary Webb is telling us today. We cannot keep on pretending that we are free anywhere in the Western tradition. What's your opinion on this? I would like to take a look. I'm being very censored. My computer has been hacked. I cannot even download my programs. You have made more than 30 minutes. For us, for the country, for the world, hope to see you next time in the next edition of React Today. Much to say. Au revoir. Bye-bye. Hasta pronto. React Today as part of the World's Whale Project, 10 years.
But also the fact that now the ceasefire has been agreed upon. This is becoming the new tool for Israel to continue the genocide, to continue what the genocide didn't achieve, the ethnic cleansing of Palestine. Israel must put an end to its unlawful occupation. It must withdraw the troops, dismantle the colonies, and stop exploiting Palestinian resources. Everyone who's been trying to infuse an ounce of respect for international law in the context of the aggression on Gaza has been accused of anti-Semitism, supporting terrorism, from the Pope to the Secretary General, and of course, special rapporteurs among others. Everyone who's been trying to infuse an ounce of respect for international law in the context of the aggression on Gaza has been accused of anti-Semitism, supporting terrorism, from the Pope to the Secretary General, and of course, special rapporteurs among others. I will not be silent till I will have breath in my lungs. I will continue to advocate for justice.
Obviously, we just heard the view from Africa and another part of Asia, but there is absolutely no shortage, is there, of inequalities, injustices from Africa to the Middle East, but specifically and perhaps nowhere more than in occupied Palestine, which is your mandate. It isn't just governments and political leaders who are either unable or unwilling to fulfill some of their legal and moral obligations. It's also major institutions like the United Nations, given the fact that it is the world's foremost peacekeeping body. It has failed repeatedly, as we all know, to secure a ceasefire for Gaza over 2 years. It was blocked by one permanent member at least 6 times. How do you deliver justice for Palestinians, given this reality, and would it require accountability, including from outside actors who have, for the past 2 years, either stood by silently or were complicit, actively fueling Israel's war machine?
Good afternoon, everyone. I would also like to extend my appreciation and gratitude to the Doha Forum, Excellencies, Sheikh Musa. I think that if there is a word that comes to my mind more than any other these days, is rapture, is apocalypse. I've often described the situation of Gaza, of Palestine, in fact, as apocalyptic, and I'll get back to it. But the question of rapture is harshly felt inside the international system. Those who behave, those who believe, those who advocate for the application of, and those who have to use international law as a compass to guide politics. And today they are confronted with a reality where the compass works. It's not international law that has a problem, it's politics. it's politics that has completely lost its moral compass. And is it new? No, it's not new. Palestine bears testament to all injustices that other parts of the world, like Somalia, Yemen, and many others of distinguished representatives who are here today speak to. What I think, and also the breaking of the trust into the political system, I'm equally horrified as a lawyer, as a special rapporteur, to see the United Nations, the organizations whose very existence is connected to the never again, to the crimes, to the horrible, abominable crimes that were committed during World War II, to make sure that we do not get there again, that never again is really respected, to preserve peace and stability, premised upon the respect of everyone's dignity and equality. I'm equally horrified, I was saying, to see that, yes, it took 2 years to arrive, to vote, to pass a resolution that included the ceasefire, but also the fact that now the ceasefire has been agreed upon. This is becoming the new tool for Israel to continue the genocide, to continue what the genocide didn't achieve. The ethnic cleansing of Palestine, the total crushing of the Palestinians' right to self-determination. And this is why I say this is a moment that calls for full introspection and realization of how are we making to repair that trust. Because the trust that is at the basis of the social contract that exists at the domestic level in democracies, but also at the international level in the United Nations, is under test today. If you see, for one thing, I'm proud to be a Western person, a European today, is not just because of the system of values premised upon the respect of international law, the rule of law, or equality before the law. No. It's the young people, the young generation, which in the West has been the first from the United States to Europe to Australia and other places, former colonies, former settler colonial endeavors. They have stood up against the genocide. They have been the first to protest, followed by the workers. And what they have been met with? Batons by the police, criminalizations by government, and other forms of repression in the cradle of democracies. So this is why I'm saying Palestine has been an awakening, a wake-up call for all of us. And I often speak, and this is the last remark I wanted to share, of the Palestine effect. This is not the first genocide in human history. This is at least the third genocide, if not the fourth or the fifth, that occurs in my living time, my lifetime. This is the first genocide that awakens global conscience and global response. Palestine is allowing us to see what the law becomes when it's in the hands of power. Palestine is allowing us to see what connects all injustices, what happens to Yemen, to Sudan, to Congo, and including in places where poverty has not been so rooted as it is today for a long time, including in the West. We have a common enemy, and we need to face it, where the politics is at the service of economic interests.
But just to follow up briefly, Francesca, you mentioned that we have the laws, we have the conventions on genocide and everything else. It is the implementation that lacks. I wonder to what extent it is accurate to say that the world has lost its moral compass, or, as you've just alluded to now, the genocide in Gaza has actually exposed the level of dishonesty, and let's face it, hypocrisy within the Western world particularly. So to that point, and another one that I want to ask you about very briefly before I move on to our other two speakers, you are the first UN Special Rapporteur to ever have been sanctioned by any state. The United States imposed sanctions on you for simply doing your job, for publishing reports that have taken on corporations and governments that you believe have been complicit in Israel's genocide in Gaza. You refuse to be intimidated. You and I had a conversation a few days ago. You say you will not be intimidated, but surely it must do something to the rule of law and anyone willing to uphold it despite this campaign of intimidation and bullying.
Look,
does it?
What happens to me is what happens to anyone who stands in solidarity, not with the Palestinian people, with justice. Because today, the international, what the United States sanctioning me is telling to the international system is, we don't need you. And this is the culmination of a series of attacks, of a series of aggressions, a smear campaign. Everyone who's been trying to infuse an ounce of respect for international law in the context of the aggression on Gaza has been accused of anti-Semitism, supporting terrorism, from the Pope to the Secretary General, and of course, special rapporteurs among others. So I could speak to what has happened to me, and what I think is so pernicious of this is the tolerance. So you ask me why you do not, why do you continue? Why do you persist? Because what I'm left with is my dignity and it's my voice. And while no member states have done what I think should be done, getting together, standing together and standing up against the United States and tell enough, this is a violation, this is the first UN person who's been sanctioned in 80 years of UN life, and it cannot constitute a precedent. It's illegal, it's against the UN Charter, it's against the Convention on Privileges and Immunities. And so, please, you have to withdraw the sanctions. No member state has done it. It doesn't speak to my courage. It speaks to the broad cowardice that exists in the international community, and I cannot be held accountable for that. But, there is a but. I will not be silent till I will have breath in my lungs. I will continue to advocate for justice, not as a lawyer, not as the special rapporteur for the occupied Palestinian territory, but as a mother who doesn't want that the brutality that has been unleashed day in and day out, with the complacency and the complicity of so many governments, especially from the part of the world I come from, will become the rule. I cannot accept as a mother that this is normalized, and this is why I keep on saying we still have time. What we are using is not something we have inherited from our ancestors. It's something that we are borrowing, and let me be very honest, we are stealing from our children, and this is why I think let's take it as an opportunity to change.
Yeah, if I may. I'm reminded of something Noam Chomsky once said. He said that your rights correspond to your power and your wealth. Do you believe that is true in the Palestinian context, in the sense that the Palestinian people do not have much international support, not on a popular level, but with governments, because of their lack of power and wealth to a certain degree? As a European, do you think this is a turning point?
Yes, I think it's a turning point. And also this is what is so interesting about the history of Palestine. I was recently in South Africa, where I realized something beautiful that surprised me. We tend to think as Nelson Mandela quite as a unique, and he was a very special man. But if you go to South Africa, you realize that Nelson Mandela couldn't have been born in any other country, in the sense that the South Africans have a strength that it's almost incomparable to anything I've seen. Why? Because this is a people that has really fought for centuries, and one of the most horrible forms of settler colonial domination, and which in the last 50 years of its life were known as apartheid. But Nelson Mandela was one of the most famous quotes of his is, South Africa, we will not be free until Palestine is free. What did it mean? Why didn't he say Somalia or Yemen or any other country? Because of something that linked South Africa and Palestine. It's the European settler colonial mentality that still underpins what Israel is doing to the Palestinian people, and especially in the occupied Palestinian territory. So do I see a moment of redemption? Absolutely. And it's in the power of the Palestinians, because they have not been defeated, they still, and I'm not talking of armed resistance, no, I'm talking of resilience. Sumud, which is the most defining value for the Palestinian people, has become a universal term. Thank you. This is for the Palestinians, I guess. People in Europe know what Sumud means, and its resilience and its steadfastness. And is it an opportunity for the governments? Yes. Yes, because we still need them. We still principle leadership. Leaders who put rights before profits. People in governments who are able to make sacrifices and act with dignity and integrity. There is always time, but time is not infinite. And so I do think that the word we need to pursue in order to reorient political conduct with the compass of the legal compass, what international law says, is justice. Can we stand all together for justice, for a world that is more just? Because this is what people are asking. They are standing against a place where might makes right. And in fact, the people of the world are getting united from Malaysia, Yemen, Somalia, South Africa, to all places on the world, not just the young people, the workers striking and civil servants breaking the ranks, demonstrating that you can be more civil than servants. This is the cusp of a revolution. The reason why I'm still hopeful is that the power of the Palestinians is intact. And today, Palestine doesn't just mean Sumud. Palestine is speaking the word and the verb and the grammar of justice.
Final thought, we've got 3.5 minutes. I know that you've been warning, haven't you, that we are misusing our resources, that we have a finite time on this earth, and that we must do more when we can. You said to me a few days ago that the mask has fallen, and that without popular action, justice will not be delivered. So the question is, do you believe meaningful justice can still be achieved, and what must we all do, not just governments, but all of us?
Yes, so let me end on a positive note. And this is not just to re-energize the discussion, but because I really believe that we can still make it better. And it's through justice. But first, let me take 1 minute to share a reflection that I hope will plant a seed of curiosity in you. Some scholars have written an article titled, "Palestine is a feminist issue." And this is so powerfully true. In the beginning, I was saying, what does it mean? I thought that it was referring to the fact that the feminist movement, especially in the West, had not been very close to the fate of the Palestinian. Is not that. It's about emancipation from oppressive structures of power that speak patriarchy. It's true at the domestic level, it's true at the international level. Because look at the way, for example, the International Criminal Court, Palestinian Human Rights Organization, a UN Special Rapporteur are being sanctioned. This is a slap in the face of the system. And it doesn't come from someone who respects the rules. It's someone who feels above the rules. And this is why I'm saying we need to break the system, not in a peaceful way. And we can. How do we do that? Through respecting the rules ourselves, first and foremost. And this is why the answer to your question, Rida, is justice. The International Court of Justice has already spoken. It has said that in order to end the violence in the case of Palestine, Israel must put an end to its unlawful occupation. It must withdraw the troops, dismantle the colonies, and stop exploiting Palestinian resources. What else do we need? The court has spoken. So let's follow this. Let's not impose further conditions of brutality on the Palestinians. At the moment, they are still being genocided. So this is a call for humanity and compassion. Justice goes through accountability, for sure, to international courts, through domestic courts, but first and foremost, it requires a change of mentality and a change of mind and a change of heart in every one of us. Change and peace is in every step. So let's make it happen as we leave this room today. Thank you.